We're happy to be here today at the top of the Rocky Mountains in the United States of America. And we're in the premise of the Utah State University, where we have Professor Dr. Gerhard Plenert here with us, an accomplished writer. And an interesting thing that I've known Dr. Plenert here when he was an adjunct professor in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. And I knew him then as a writer of business books and very good, thick MRP, they're, state of the art in business. And today I'd like to hear from him. I know that he's written more books and they're quite different. And I'll let him introduce those books to you. Dr. Plenert, tell us about these new books that you've written recently.
Very good, very good. I've got 18 books published, 14 of which are in the business book category, and they cover a lot of different subjects. For example, this one here is one of the management books. It talks about management improvement, management perfection, enterprise excellence, that kind of thing. It's called E-Manager. That's an example of the management books I did. Another area that I did a lot of publications in was in the continuous improvement area. And this book talks about all the different types of continuous improvement tools that are available, like Lean, Six Sigma, those kinds of things. And so that one was one that I did just recently. And then I also did some very technical books. For example, this one is very technical. It gets into the detailed mathematics of forecasting and how to optimize forecast, and so on. All these books have been written primarily based on companies that I've worked with. For example, Microsoft inspired one of the books, the U.S. Air Force inspired another book, and so on. And these are all built on real-life experiences. But recently, more recently, I've been, when I do a lot of this traveling, I've been doing a lot of reading, and as I do reading, I've been thinking, well, why don't I do some writing as well? And the books I've been reading are various novels in the suspense adventure category or in the fantasy category. And so I started doing that, and I started writing some novels. And this is the first one that came out. It's a series. It's the first of a series of books in the same category, but it has as a it talks about a conflict between a couple of conspiracy theories, one around the Knights Templar and what they have done, and the other about Nazis moving to Paraguay after Second World War, and the two come into conflict with each other, and it's around that theme. And I've incorporated a lot of my travels into these books because I wanted to talk about places I've actually seen and been to. So in this book you get a lot of stories about Australia and about Israel and about Ethiopia and Egypt and just different things. And it's kind of fun to write these things when you experience them and then want to share them in a novel form. This is the second book in that Templar series, and again, still has the same good guys and bad guys coming at each other, but with different problems, different issues. And then I had an agent in New Zealand that pushed me to do a novel again on the War on Terror. And in this book I'm suggesting that the War on Terror is being fought too much by Western standards, and that the Western culture needs to adapt to the Middle Eastern culture if they're going to have a chance to win this war. And so it does talk about those kinds of conflicts, and it talks about the culture and the way the different people think. And then I went into another area, which was, again, because of an area of interest, and that was more of in the fantasy world, and this is the first book in this series in the fantasy world. Siege of the Small World. This series is called the Small World series, and again, it focuses on just adventures. It's along the lines of Tolkien, Lord of the Rings type of a thing. It's just something I did that was fun. If you're interested, you could look at all of my books on my website, which would be just Gerhard Plenert, my first name and last name, all as one word, gerhardplenert.com.
I'll have that published out on the video so that the audience,
Okay.
probably in Asia, they're able to get online.
So at least see what they are. Yeah.
Very good. Now, what interests me is that how do you manage to write the different topics from business, and this is a different area. We talk about novels, we talk about fantasy, we talk about mystery. So how are we able to do that?
Well, my quick answer is always there's a lot of fantasy in business as well, but that's
Is that right?
okay. That's more
Business and art as well in fantasy.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah. No, they're just different interests. People don't have just one interest in life, and my hobby really is writing, and whether it's the business books or the fantasy books, it's people have different hobbies. So for some people, a hobby is a sport or whatever. For me, hobby is writing and creating ideas and putting them down into a book. So.
I understand you're quite a traveler. I mean, every year when I knew you try to go to a country and learn about its culture. So tell us a bit about your travels, and you're getting all these ideas, and tell us a bit about your travels and what you've learned.
Yeah, I did 12 years as a full-time academic, university professor, and that's when I was in the University of Malaya, also for a year there. And then I've done, probably the last 20-something years, I've done as a consultant. And as a consultant, you do spend a lot of time in different parts of the world. Some of my most recent travels were to Saudi Arabia, went to most of the countries in the Middle East. Prior to that, did a lot in, I spent months to years in places like London, Mexico, Malaysia, of course, Australia, China, different countries. Mostly on different projects, different consulting projects, which usually last anywhere from 6 months to 2 years, that type of thing. And I did a lot of stuff for the U.S. military, the U.S. Air Force, so that gave me, in the Pacific region, that gave me travel to the entire Pacific Ring at different times. So yeah, a lot of travel in there.
From all the experience, you accumulate a rich culture and understanding of people, and lots of time to, the brain and the mind just absorbs this, all of that, and then you start to take the pen out. And how do you get that flow? How do you choose a topic? How do you, from management books to mystery to novels, and so how does one do that?
Well, every one of the topics, whether it's a mystery or whether it's a business book, it's based on some experience that I've had in some area. So, the business ones especially are very specific stories about actual project experiences that I've had, and the novels are probably a conglomeration of different readings that I've had. Different books that I've read. I thought this was interesting, or how that approach was in that book, and other books I'd read, I'd think, well, I could do that better. Why don't I try doing that a little better, and that type of thing. So that's how the novels came about. Just from experiences, but that time from reading.
Very good. I think those books are the kind of books my son reads in Singapore. And nowadays, fiction and the movies they make and all that. I think you're very good in keeping up with the times. And
I appreciate that. I do have the agent in New Zealand wants to create a movie out of that one book, so that we'll see where that goes. They're working on a screenplay for that one.
In games, these days, games, computer games.
We haven't talked about games, but we are talking about.
Son-in-law who's in the game market. It's it's a worldwide. He travels all the world, based on just the games.
Yeah,
right.
That'd be great.
It's a new world that we're in.
Yeah, it is. It is. It is. You mentioned one other thing that's very interesting, which kind of inspired some of the thoughts, and that is studying cultures from the different countries teaches you a lot. And when you study the culture, you got to study the religion, and you learn a lot. If you learn the religion, you learn why they think and how they think, and Middle Eastern versus Asian versus Latin American.
The belief system, right?
The belief
of each culture, right?
Yeah, it has a lot to do with the way people think and respond and react, and I tried to build some of that into the books as well. So
Right, very good. I think I'll learn a lot from your reading your books.
Well, hopefully
Yeah.
they're fun.
For any of the reader out there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fun and informative and also very up to date. You know, that's
Hope so.
great for the young generation and those older who are trying to keep up with what's out there.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Well, thank you very much for your time. It's
Yeah.
been a real pleasure listening you explain the books, and we look forward to you to come over back to Asia sometime.
Yes.
And I know you will.
Yeah,
And
that's
we'll
in the plans.
get more people to come up, and you probably are book readers by then, who
Yeah.
know that the author is in town. So I look forward to having another interview with you in Talk Lane Asia.